the recent Mango fiasco on Solana, where the Mango token only had about $200,000 worth of liquidity. Someone who shall remain nameless put in $5 million to a bunch of exchanges, pushed the price up, borrowed against their Mango, drained the Mango insurance fund. A lot of different ways that you can structure oracles to protect against these type of attacks.
You've got friends here.
你知不知道？你在不在？
我不知道，我不知道，我不知道，我不知道。
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the IDK Show. The IDK Show is hosted by Bu Zhi DAO, which is a social DAO, and we're, a bunch of really cool founders and builders and creators in the space. One of our major goals this year is to host Taipei Blockchain Week, one of the first global crypto conferences in Taiwan. And our speakers include People Pleaser, Kevin Lin, Tom Schmidt, and today we have Mitch, co-founder and CTO of Switchboard, who will also be joining us as a speaker for Taipei Blockchain Week. So I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I love it. Very excited for Taipei.
So Switchboard is a permissionless oracle protocol, bridging any data from on and off chain onto Web3. Let's dive into that. What do all of those words mean?
As you know, in the world of blockchain, everything is deterministic. If there's an input, there is a set output. But in the web, for a set input like a URL entry, you don't have a set output. So if you actually want to make web requests from a blockchain app, the question comes along, how do you actually reach consensus on that data? And that's really where oracles come in. They can reach some level of consensus on the data and bring that over in a very trusted manner. When people think about oracles, I think they get scared that this is overly complex and stuff, but there's really three concepts. It's if you understand how a web proxy works, and you can understand how a subset of consensus can work on a number, usually by taking a weighted median based off of how much you trust each source. And you pull that on chain, all the oracles sign their answers. That is 90% of the flow right there. So we built is Switchboard, which is an oracle protocol. I wouldn't call it a network per se, because anyone can go spin up their own realm of oracles. But we've designed this whole language that oracles can understand for pulling data, coming to consensus, and bringing that on chain in a really reliable manner and just to really anyone's specifications. So if you want to make a web request, we can help you do that on any blockchain we're launching on. And we are on 3 right now and expanding.
I kind of want to dive into use case examples of utilizing these feeds and oracles to maybe add some color into the technical explanations that we're going through. What are the usual use cases?
Sure. So almost always it's perpetuals, funding rates, price goes down, longs pay shorts, price goes up, shorts pay long. For actually understanding that funding rate, people definitely use oracles to understand the price of the asset and for measuring collateral when you're borrowing or lending. Most DEXs use this in a variety of ways depending on the protocol. I'm hoping there are some more non-financial dApps that will come on chain that find different use cases. We see a lot of randomness. Requests we have a VRF on Solana as well. So a lot of games or NFT mints want to use our randomness engine. And prediction markets are all ones that I see growth in and hopefully continue the next few years.
So oracles are pretty integrated into every part.
Yeah, definitely.
On Switchboard recently, and I saw that you guys I saw the sports betting, or at least the sports data.
Mm-hmm.
You had one for weather as well. And I was definitely asking why. I was like, what are the use cases for having that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So insurance markets, you could, if you ever put X amount of money into hosting an event somewhere, you could possibly have an insurance market on chain saying if the weather goes below X degrees, pay this much or get this much.
Yeah, and that's so interesting.
I saw somebody else there was tracking weed prices in South California too. They're making a lot of interesting stuff there.
I saw that too. Yeah. What kind of use cases would come out of that?
I have no idea. That's all the user created stuff. But I mean, more power to them. I love that they're getting creative.
Yeah, exactly. What's maybe like a creative project that you've seen that's using one of your feeds and oracles? Well,
I'll give Aver a shout out. I very much like their platform. They've been very close to us for a long time, and I think they're doing prediction markets right. I'm rooting for them, and hope I can continue to help them.
I'd love to dive into how you got started in this field, a little bit about yourself and your history.
Sure. Yeah. So I got a degree, a master's in computer security. Worked at a lot of FANG companies. I landed at Google for my full-time job. And I spent about 2 years on Google hardware, focused on home network security. Google was susceptible to DNS rebinding attacks for way too long, and I helped make a lot of the home devices protected against that. And then I was on App Engine for 2 years. I led a team there working on this product called VPC Access, which bridges the network layers for the App Engine application itself to the rest of GCP. And, during that time, I actually met my co-founder. His name is Chris. He actually ran a Circles trading desk from start until mid-2019. He saw Solana as an up-and-coming chain, and he had a lot of the network connections for the root teams in Solana, and said, hey, Mitch, you want to try to build an Oracle? So I prototyped something, and he closed a seed round in 3 weeks, so I decided to just quit my job and do this. So
yeah, I mean, that's such a great journey. That's such an interesting journey.
And if anyone ever has any questions, I used to be a teacher for computer security as well, so everyone's feel free to message me. I'm Dr. Yeah, I know. I was a nerd. Yeah, Michigan computer science on my shirt.
That's
right
amazing.
Here,
wow. Okay, that totally makes sense too. There's definitely a lot of ties, especially recently in conversations about security and oracles. What maybe are the similarities between coming from working in security into building oracles on that tie to on-chain data, and how does Switchboard tie into that?
As an Oracle provider, we really support a lot of DeFi, so a lot of these finality transfers do come back to oracles. So you really need to model the sources that you're pulling data from, their risk of misreporting data. Know the recent Mango fiasco on Solana, where the Mango token only had about $200,000 worth of liquidity. Someone who shall remain nameless put in $5 million to a bunch of exchanges, pushed the price up, borrowed against their Mango, and drained the Mango insurance fund. A lot of different ways that you can structure oracles to protect against these types of attacks. There are different types of liquidity oracles you can build using our platform to check these types of things and make sure that the price is not easily manipulated off-chain that would be reported on-chain. For some high volatility assets, a TWAP can help for certain periods, but at other times you need instant price updates. So I think there can be liquidity oracles that would really help to show you how much risk you are taking by building some protocol around this asset, because how easy, like the depth of the order book chart will show you how easily manipulatable that price is. And as long as you understand the buying power to change one of these feeds without actually attacking the Oracle protocol itself, the more you will understand about the risk you are taking by, let's say, putting up a certain amount of collateral of Mango versus ETH. Building test infrastructure, I think, needs to be built up in Web3. It's the space moves so quickly that people want to push to prod before sufficient testing. I was on the DevOps rotation for most of my teams at Google, so I learned a lot about how to roll out things securely. So you have like a warm-up period for each build. You put this on DevNet for a week, and you need to have passed a certain error threshold to actually say, okay, this is valid to move on. For anything pertaining to oracles, that error threshold has to be 0. So you need to know exactly what you're doing in testing each corner case of your applications. And especially in something that Oracle that is based on user input, there's quite a breadth of things that we want to check and make sure are valid before making the change. But we still have the ability to move very quickly. Any rollout time is typically 2 weeks for us. So when you have significant assets, we are actually helping people build these feeds. If they reach out to us directly, we can help build them for their needs.
I guess we covered kind of like what are the similarities from going from security into building Switchboard. Have there been challenges? Have there been any major differences?
Well, the world of the blockchain doesn't have as strong SLAs as some cloud providers, and SLA is a service level agreement for how your uptime. And when you're actually running a web business, when the base layer that you're building on is so new that it doesn't have an SLA yet. The difficulties with Solana's uptime from November to June was a difficult experience to manage. And as the Oracle provider, people get upset that their feeds aren't updating in a certain period of time because we can't push transactions through just like anybody else. The best we can do is connect directly into the validator rather than forego the RPC, the REST API, and just push transactions as much as possible. But then we're just flooding the network and contributing to the problem as well. Managing that from a DevOps perspective has been quite difficult, but it's, thanks to actually a lot of the work that the Mango team contributed to the Solana code base, that has been greatly improved. I've had almost zero issues since June.
You also mentioned that you're launching on a few new chains. How do you kind of analyze that risk going into chains? Are they new chains? Are they pre-existing?
We just passed 1 billion transactions on Solana, and right now we are launching on Near, and we have launched on Aptos. And the biggest thing you got to think about when you're moving from Solana is the other chains have much stronger sentiments of fee markets. And when oracles are fetching requests, they're going to have to pay the gas to put it back on chain. So it becomes a whole different measurement of incentives. When is the oracle actually incentivized to report from what they're being paid? And it's hard to measure how much gas they're spending sometimes. So there also has to be, in some sense, a gas oracle that can tell the other oracles how much they should be spending to be profitable or not. In any sense, when you are starting up, it is still profitable for oracles to always respond because that builds the community behind the protocol and it encourages growth. But down the line, it becomes very imperative to actually understand what is the cost I'm putting out versus what is the cost I'm putting in. And when you get to these fee markets, it's actually not as easy of a question as you think it might be.
Yeah, I was just about to say it doesn't seem very simple at all. What are there maybe examples of when you would want to prioritize, not using a specific oracle?
Like if you have a market that has $10 million of liquidity that's depending on a Switchboard oracle, you're going to want that to always report no matter the gas cost. There's no gas cost that's going to make it EV negative for that oracle to report. So you need some dynamic way when you are making your data feed to actually say, these are the bounds that I'm willing to accept this % of the time in these certain scenarios. Or you just have the oracle eat the cost, which is a much easier answer, but then there's no incentive to run an oracle.
And are you seeing the difference on the chains that you're integrating on?
So Solana is by far the cheapest. Near and Aptos, they are a bit more expensive, but there are different parameters you can set for a feed. The way data feeds work is, for us, we are constantly updating these data feeds every update interval that is specified in the data feed. But what you can do is you could say, hey, Oracle, if the data has not changed beyond 0.5%, don't bother sending me anything back. So you can make it a lot cheaper by saying, only tell me when it's a significant enough price difference that I would actually care about. And that way you can save a ton of gas.
I see. Okay. That's, I think, what I was also trying to figure out or think about earlier when you talked about when to choose, how to choose when the Oracle would send information. What are some things that we could maybe look forward to coming from Switchboard?
Yeah. So we are working towards a V3 and we are looking to lower costs as much as possible. And we have a few ideas in mind, but we've already started developing. And this would enable much cheaper access to non-quantitative oracles, like I was talking before. When you have these just raw buffers of data you are bringing on chain, so we can actually be an oracle for anything, not just numbers anymore. And the way you do that classically is through an algorithm called Levenshtein distances, which puts a numerical difference on pure buffers. So if you have 5 characters out of place or a distance of X amount away from each other, it can put a numerical difference in how different those two buffers are from each other. In that problem, the Levenshtein distance algorithm is an n-squared algorithm. So the bigger your data gets, the more gas you're going to be spending on chain to actually compute those distances. And it's not practical at all in that sense. But we believe we found a solution for that in V3. This really enables a whole new way to request data on chain. To be integrated with any API. We know a lot of blockchains are actually focusing on social media platforms on-chain. This would enable them to do a lot if you're able to just pull raw buffers rather than just numbers on-chain very easily in a reliable way.
Trying to understand it a little bit better, but does it makes it faster, reduces gas, it's you can just process more?
Some oracles are the push model where they just have set oracle providers and they just stream data as fast as possible. The way we work is that we are a pull model. So you request new information to be processed by oracles. We allocate a set of 5 oracles for you. They go fetch the data and bring it back on chain. So no matter what, you have one transaction going to the oracles and then one transaction from each oracle going back in. So the round trip time minimum would be 2x the confirmation time of a transaction on any chain we're working on.
Let's compare like DeFi versus, like you said earlier, pulling a whole book, or like, so if we're pulling from social media. Visualize this. What are, the data sizes or time it might take to pull certain things?
You get caught in some pretty interesting scenarios depending on the size, at least for Solana. You can pull in JSON objects that are really complex structured, but parsing that on Solana takes a lot of compute units, so it might be expensive to parse on chain. On Solana, you want to make the data as compact as possible, although it's probably not going to be nearly as human readable. You can't actually make a Solana packet or a transaction bigger than a UDP packet size. So you're limited to somewhere around 1,256 bytes in a single transaction. So it does get tricky if you want to do these raw buffers that are longer than that to bring them on chain, because then oracles could be working really hard to pull all that data on chain. So yeah, there are some questions that still need to be answered, how the best system is going to be for doing this, or if you just want to limit the data size for any raw buffers to that packet size, to 1,256 bytes or whatever that number is. It's close to that. But that's a good question. That's still something we're developing.
I guess everything that we covered today, would that be related to what you'll be speaking about at Taipei Blockchain Week?
Oh, definitely. I want to focus a lot on the next iteration of Switchboard and make it just as cheap as possible, as easy as possible for people to bridge data. And we have a whole UI on app.switchboard.xyz to help people build these feeds. And what I believe is the one of the easier ways to really imagine how this all works.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what applications come out of your latest version. How can developers maybe get connected with Switchboard?
Yeah, we are always open. We always are looking for people interested in building, and the team is always looking for help, always hiring. So if you reach out on Discord or Telegram, my handle is Dr. Blocks, spelled out. I don't ever hesitate to reach out to me personally. I really do love teaching and the whole learning process.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you in Taipei.
Can't wait. I will see you.
我不知道，我不知道。